anything? A trout, big trout. You're in. Yeah, that would be a trout then. It's what's known as a chunky rainbow. Yeah.
Gave for a nip because he thought it was a pike.
So did we.
Oh, that's a couple of decent size ones pulled out, wasn't it?
Do you want to get a...
Guess on that about £8, £7. It was an £8 one yesterday, wasn't it?
Took a whole sardine. He's away. Right then, good morning and welcome back to the diary once again. Thank you for joining me, or joining us. Today is a complete experiment for David, my pal David and I. David's just along the bank here. We've come to one of the many Pennine reservoirs that are up here in the north of England, to try and understand the pike fishing on this venue. I have to say I'm quite a long way outside of my comfort zone for all sorts of reasons, which I'll no doubt touch on at some point during the day. But we're not complete strangers to this water. We have, both David and I have fished it before. Most regularly for the roach. However, we have on a couple of occasions, many years ago, tried for a pike, and those visits were at the invitation of the water company that owns this place, as a pike fishing trial. They invited members of the Pike Anglers Club to come and have a go, just to see if the water contained pike or not. Now, the first of those visits was donkeys years ago, and I can't remember how many people fished, but there were no pike caught. The second visit, in fact, I organised on behalf of the PAC, and there were 22 anglers. We reckon there were probably as many as 60 rods in the water, and not a pike was seen. So I think the piking community more or less said, let's not bother. However, in recent times, pike have apparently suddenly, they may have been there all along and just never got shown up, but it seems quite sudden that pike began to be seen and caught, and some very nice pike have been caught by either people who have lure fished for them, or have caught them accidentally while fishing for the trout. This is a very heavily stocked trout fishery, and so there were a number that I'm sure were caught by accident, because it is an all methods fishery, and so there were people lure fishing for trout who inadvertently ended up with a handful of pike. So we thought we'd pop along and have a go, but we're using dead baits rather than lures. Now that might not have been the right decision. We'll just have to wait and see. However, one of the reasons I said earlier that I'm outside of my comfort zone is the water level. As with so many reservoirs, the water level is so low that the terrain, just getting to the water's edge, was a bit of a challenge. And I have to say I'm slightly nervous that, or I was slightly nervous that this sort of rocky terrain isn't ideal when it comes to dead baiting. And you probably saw me earlier on leading around with using carp tactics just to check what I've got in front of me in terms of the bottom of the water, the bottom of the reservoir. And in fact it's remarkably smooth and clean. It's just up here at the higher levels that it's so rocky and bouldery and horrible. I mean, Dave and I have been trying to work out just how low the reservoir is in terms of water level, and it's got to be at least 30 foot down. I mean, there'll be an official figure, I'm sure, but it looks something like 30 foot certainly, which is a long way down. And in fact, Dave's entertaining himself while he's waiting for a bite by picking up lost tackle. I think he's got 4 or 5 leads up to now. So an experiment. Let's just see what happens. One of the other things I'm slightly uncomfortable about is it's a very popular fishery, and I'm sure you'll see in the background of some of the shots there are already quite a number of people fishing. Not my favourite. I much prefer to be alone, as they say, but it is a very popular fishery. I think some of them are fishing for pike, some might well be fishing for the trout, obviously. So let's see what happens. At the moment we're all topping up our vitamin D. I mean, it's extremely bright. We could do with some cloud, and I'll explain what we're doing tactic wise in a short while. Let's just hope something happens. Well, that's the first hour gone, and nothing to report. I'm using straight ledgers on both rods, and at the moment sardines on both rods, but as I say, no action so far. Well, that's 2 hours gone and not a touch, and there's a really mean cold wind got up, which is making life a little uncomfortable, to be honest. I've got the right hand rod at sort of full cast distance and the left hand rod at sort of half distance, if that makes sense. But I'm just beginning to wonder, stood here, whether I should bring one perhaps the left-hand one really close in, because I can see that there's a definite change in colour of the water quite close in. So it's shallow here, but it seems there's darker water out there, and I just wonder whether bringing one in on the sort of towards the edge of the darker water might not be an idea. On the other hand, I'm probably grasping at straws. Well, that's 3 hours, and this is becoming a real test now. And I suspect the audio on this video is going to be pretty shambolic. The wind is getting even stronger than the last time I spoke to you, and we're having absolutely no interest whatsoever, apart from the trout that David got early on. It's feeling like hard work now. Well, that's both rods bait renewed and repositioned, and quite frankly I've lost any confidence I had about today has disappeared. It's now flipping horrible. And I really don't see us getting a fish, to be honest. So as experiments go, looks like being a failure, I would say. I'd love to be proved wrong, but somehow doubt it. 6 hours and still no signs of life. And the really bad news, I'm fast running out of coffee. Well, we're into the last hour, and I begin to despair. I think this trout reservoir experiment is doomed to failure. So, thick end of 7 hours, and eventually this little beauty came along. Pretty made up with that one.
Wind died off a bit.
Lovely. Well, that was worth the wait. Well, after all that, what a lovely fish. Perfect condition, there wasn't a mark on it. And I guess what, maybe 6-7 pounds, something like that. So not a monster, but very, very welcome. So they are in here. One of the things I think I said earlier is that a lot of the pike that have been reported from here have been caught with lures, either intentionally or unintentionally, and that, I think that's a bit typical for trout water pike, because they're used to chasing their meal. They are scavengers, obviously, but until that fish came along, I was beginning to wonder whether in fact dead baiting was completely the wrong approach for this water. But apparently not, and whilst it might only be quite a modest fish, it's a very pleasing fish to get after such a long day. And at last I think the wind is starting to ease off. So just under an hour left to go, so we'll see. You never know, anything could happen. Well, I think that's just about it. A last minute blank saver saved the day. So this trout water reservoir experiment was at least marginally successful. Although I have to say we didn't learn a lot. Because the water's so low, at least we could see where not to fish when it starts to fill up later in the season. You certainly wouldn't want to be casting dead baits onto the sort of terrain that we've been sat in all day. Hope you enjoy this. As I say, there wasn't a great deal of action, but at least we got something at the end. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.